Local webcasting for a worldwide audience.
Hello, this is Radio Lewis, where the music matters. And this is the Cosmic Jukebox.
If your world is falling around you and you don't know where you are, if you need someone to be there, baby, believe in me. When the dark night is upon you and you're feeling very small, if you need someone around you, baby, believe in me. Show me the need in me, baby, believe in me. Tell me that you can see. Give me your number, tell me come over anywhere. Give me a call whenever you're falling, I'll be there. You never give me your love, you never give me your love. When I'm far away, it's just the same old story. It's just the same old story. It's the same old place. It's the same old. You never give me your love, you never give me your love. When I'm far away, it's just the same old story. It's just the same old story. It's the same old place.
There, we started with Barclay James Harvest and Believe in Me from 1976. How are you today? Hope you're well. Nice to be with you all again. That was from the album Octoberon, and it had an embossed, or still does actually, an embossed cover, which I thought, even at the time actually, looked a little bit dated. It was their 7th album. Mixed reviews would be perhaps a bit of an understatement. Personally, I find those reviews wrong. I think it's a real cracker. There are some smashing tracks on there, there really are. And it reached number 19 in the UK. Now, this is just me. There's touches of our old friend Rare Bird there, I think. That's my personal feeling. Some really, really good melodies though. And one other little thing, I think that's the first Barclay James Harvest track I've played on the jukebox. It won't be the last. Now, the show itself this week is going to be a little bit on the dreamy side in the main, I think. So don't jump around too much because, well, I don't think you're going to be able to, because I think what I'm going to be playing is a little bit more laid back, with one or two exceptions. Right, so we'll move on and have a good listen now to the Little River Band and Lonesome Loser.
Have you heard about the lonesome loser, beaten by the Queen of Hearts every time? Have you heard about the lonesome loser? He's a loser, but he still keeps on trying.
Yourself, don't you want to be somebody? Someday somebody's gonna see inside. You have to face up. You can't run and hide. Have you heard about the lonesome loser, beaten by the Queen of Hearts every time? Have you heard about the lonesome loser? He's a loser, but he still keeps on trying. Unlucky in love, at least that's what they say. He lost his head and he gambled his heart away. He still keeps searching, though there's nothing left. Staked his heart and lost. Now he has to pay the cost. Have you heard about the lonesome loser, beaten by the Queen of Hearts every time? Have you heard about the lonesome loser? He's a loser, but he still keeps on trying. It's okay, he smiles and says, though this loneliness is driving him crazy, he don't show what goes on in his head. But if you watch very close, you'll see it all. Sit down, take a look at yourself. Don't you want to be somebody? Someday somebody's gonna see inside. You have to face up. You can't run and hide. Have you heard about the lonesome loser, beaten by the Queen of Hearts every time? Have you heard about the lonesome loser? He's a loser, but he still keeps on trying. Have you heard about the lonesome loser?
Little River Band there with Lonesome Loser from the year 1979. And that is what you call, apparently, soft rock. There you go. It's not a revelation from me, that's apparently what it's called, okay. Now, they are, or were, an Australian-Canadian group. And, should quickly tell you, the album that came from is First Under the Wire. Okay. And in terms of how that single did, number 6 in the US, number 19 in Australia, number 3 in Canada. And the reason I'm giving those little bits of info to you is it had little impact in the UK, which, to my knowledge, any Little River Band fans out there leap on and say, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. But from what I gather, they themselves have had little impact in the UK, and that really is odd when you consider the sound that they have is really, really an excellent one. Anyway, we'll move along, and this time we'll have a listen to Graham Nash and Chicago.
So your brother's bound and gagged, and they've chained him to a chair. Won't you please come to Chicago just to sing? In a land that's known as freedom, how can such a thing be fair? Won't you please come to Chicago for the help that we can bring? We can change the world. We arrange the world. It's dying to get better. Politicians, sit yourselves down. There's nothing for you here. Won't you please come to Chicago for a ride? Don't ask Jack to help you, 'cause he'll turn the other ear. Won't you please come to Chicago, or else join the other side? We can change the world. We arrange the world. It's dying. If you believe in justice, it's dying. If you believe in freedom, it's dying. Living an easy life, it's dying. Rules and regulations, who needs them? Open up the door. Somehow people must be free. I hope the day comes soon. Won't you please come to Chicago? Show your face. From the bottom of the ocean to the mountains of the moon. Won't you please come to Chicago? No one else can take your place. We can change the world. We arrange the world. It's dying. If you believe in justice, it's dying. If you believe in freedom, it's dying. Living an easy life, it's dying. Rules and regulations, who needs them? Open up the door.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
I remember to help us out.
we can change the world. We can change the world. We can change. You can change.
Graham Nash there with Chicago from the year 1971, and the album is Songs for Beginners. And as I'm sure you're well aware, Graham Nash was originally in the Hollies, and he actually provided the lead vocals for, let's give you a couple of examples, Carrie Ann and On a Carousel. So there are two tracks that you will hear him sing, and he sang obviously on very many others as well, before he then moved on to Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. And what's my feeling overall on that song? Well, I wouldn't be playing it if I didn't like it. I do. I think it's a really, really good song. Something faintly reminiscent of something else tucked away in there, but then that's quite often the way, isn't it? So, excellent. Now, from Chicago to this.
Come and meet those dancing feet on the avenue I'm taking you to, 42nd Street. Hear the beat of dancing feet. It's a song I love, the melody of 42nd Street. Little nifties from the 50s, innocent and sweet. Sexy ladies from the 80s who are indiscreet. Side by side, they're glorified, where the underworld can meet the elite on 42nd Street. Sexy ladies from the 80s who are indiscreet. Side by side they're glorified, where the underworld can meet the elite. 42nd Street, 42nd Street. Naughty, bawdy, gaudy, sporty, 42nd Street.
Cool. That was Mel Torme with 42nd Street. Yes, I know. 42nd Street is in New York. It's not in Chicago, but there you go. Does it matter? Mel Torme's nickname, incidentally, was the Velvet Frog. See, I'm glad there's no one there to ask me why was he called that, but there you go. I love that name, incidentally, Mel Torme. It is extraordinary name. He composed, actually, the music for the Christmas song, which is better known, obviously, to us as Chestnuts Roasting on an Open Fire. Didn't know that. And 42nd Street itself, of course, the music was within the film, the 1933 film, 42nd Street. Now, a little quick trip back in time into Lewis, and an anecdote of when service was a little bit different. I always remember when I was a young lad, there was a gentleman used to service in the local, what we call the VG or Wavy line. He was a lovely, attentive fellow. He was there for many, many years. And back then, he would leap out if, for example, you went in there and you asked, "Oh, have you got any sweet corn?" He wouldn't just say, "Yeah, it's over there." He'd be there. He'd say, "Yes, yes, madam," or "Sir, here we are." And he'd be pointing out 4 or 5 different versions of sweet corn to you. Couldn't do enough to please you. He was a smashing gentleman. He really was. Bless him. He's no longer with us, But it made me think of what a different world that was back then, and it really was. And it is also a clunky link to my next track, which is a 1975 listen. It's called Sounds of a Supermarket, and it helps you if you join me on the Cosmic Jukebox and travel back to that time. You see, what did 1975 if you went shopping sounded like? Well, it sounded something like this.
You sheltered me from harm, kept me warm, kept me warm. You gave my life to me, set me free, set me free. The finest years I ever knew. Ahead with you, and I would give anything I own, give up my life, my heart, my home. I would give everything I own just to have you back again. You taught me how to love. What it's up. You never said too much, but still you showed the way. And I knew from watching you. Nobody else could ever know the part of me that can't let go. And I would give anything I own, give up my life, my heart, my home. I would give everything I own just to have you back again. Is there someone you know, you're loving them so, but taking them all for granted? You may lose them one day, someone takes them away, and they don't hear the words you long to say. I would give anything I own, give up my life, my heart, my home. I would give everything I own just to have you back again, just to touch you once again.
That was Bread there with Everything I Own from 1972. Hopping back to 1975, the previous track. See, 1975 sounded like The Sims. There you go. Back to Bread again. It was from the album Baby, I'ma Want You, and that reached number 3 in the USA. This song, Everything I Own and Bread, the song was everywhere actually in 1972. But what I find a little odd is, in other words, lots and lots of my mates had it, I used to hear it all over the place. Yeah, I discovered that it actually only reached number 32 in the UK. So that's a little bit odd. And strangely, I actually didn't know anyone who owned the album either. So strange. There you go. Then there's also a case of Parallel Lines, and I don't mean Blondie here. What I mean is, it reached number 1 with Ken Booth in 1974 in the UK, and I do remember that. And Boy George in 1987 reached number 1 in the UK. And why I say Parallel Lines is I realised that at one point I think I knew of all 3 of them, but never actually linked together that it was the same song. I've only just seen and realised that's exactly what we're looking at. See, age is creeping up. It was written by David Gates, and it's a really lovely, lovely song. Now, we're going to move to a song from 1967. It's by Astrid Gilberto, and it's Misty Roses.
peace of mind.
misty roses.
Astrid Gilberto there with Misty Roses from the album Beach Samba. That was actually a Tim Harden song, and there was a Colin Blunstone version in 1971. Astrid, I suppose, is probably best known in this country for the 1962 song The Girl from Ipanema, which was covered by an awful lot of people and has been covered, still continues to be covered, but her version is without any question the best known. It's effortlessly cool, and so too is Misty Roses. It's a different affair, I suppose, from The Girl from Ipanema, but even so, I would say it's nonetheless stylish. Now, we have been drifting along quite happily for a little while. Just jump up a little bit, because it's Little Richard, and the girl can't help it.
Can't help it, the girl can't help it. She can't help it, the girl can't help it. If she walks by, the mean folks getting gross. Can't help it, the girl can't help it. If she winks an eye, the breast lights turn to toes. Can't help it, the girl can't help it. If she got a lot of what they call the moles. Can't help it, the girl can't help it. The girl can't help it, she was born to please. Can't help it, the girl can't help it. And if she's got a figure made to squeeze. Can't help it, the girl can't help it. Won't you kindly be aware? The girl can't help it, the girl can't help it. If she mesmerizes every mother's son. Can't help it, the girl can't help it. If she smiles and beefsteak become well done. Can't help it, the girl can't help it. She make grandpa feel like 21. Can't help it, the girl can't help it. The girl can't help it, she was born to please. Can't help it, the girl can't help it. And if I go to her on bending knees. Can't help it, the girl can't help it. Oh, won't you kindly be aware that I can't help it? I can't help it. Because I'm hoping, obviously, that someday the answer would be the girl can't help it, that she's in love with me. Can't help it, the girl can't help it. If she walks by, the men folks getting gross. Can't help it, the girl can't help it. If she winks an eye and the brass lights turn to toes. Can't help it, the girl can't help it. She got a lot of what they call the moles. Can't help it, the girl can't help it. The girl can't help it, she was born to please. Can't help it, the girl can't help it. And if she's got a figure made to squeeze. Can't help it, the girl can't help it. I'm hoping, obviously, that someday the answer would be the girl can't help it, that she's in love with me. Can't help it, the girl can't help it.
Little Richard there with The Girl Can't Help It from 1956. Actually, for quite a straightforward, simple song, it's got an enormous pedigree. It really has. I'll fill in a little bit for you. It was the title song from the film The Girl Can't Help It, starring the ill-fated Jane Mansfield. Also within that are Julie London and an old Lost in Space favourite, actually, Henry Jones. And it is a film packed with rock and roll stars. And this is just a small selection. Nino Tempo, The Platters, Gene Vincent, Fats Domino, Eddie Cochran, and many, many, many more. It bounds along, and if you have a quick look onto Wiki and see the incredible and diverse influence this film provided, it is, you could write an essay on it. You really could. The song itself preceded Lucille, and oddly, chart-wise, if you look at positions anyway, it's a modest success. The influence of Little Richard are likewise many and varied. that I'm sure we know. I just wanted to have a quick little interlude on something here. This is the Cosmic Jukebox, and we consider space. And I was considering the other day concerning water, the importance of life in the universe, Titan, Enceladus and Europa, the moons of Jupiter and Saturn. And what I find a little odd is the way human minds are oddly diverted. We spend an awful lot of time looking for water and life within the stars, and yet around our very own star and within our very own solar system there are at least 2 worlds that may well have oceans. And I find that rather odd, how we don't concentrate rather more on seeking the bigger questions there. And the reason I think I'm saying this to you is because there is so much that is to be discovered, and I suppose I'd like to know about it. I really would. Anyway, from science to superstition, it's Jethro Tull and the Witch's Promise.
Lend me your ear while I call you a fool. You were kissed by a witch one night in the wood, and later insisted your feelings were true. The witch's promise was coming, believing he listened while laughing you flew. Leaves falling red, yellow, brown, all over the same. And the love you have found lay outside in the rain. Washed clean by the water, but nursing his pain. The witch's promise was coming, and you're looking elsewhere for your own selfish gain. Now it's only fair. He was willing to give to you, you didn't care. You're waiting for more, but you've already had your share. Oh, it's just promises turning. So don't you wait up for him, he's going to be
Jethro Tull there with The Witch's Promise from 1970, and that reached number 4 in the UK. And it was an interesting Top of the Pops appearance, I should say, typically eccentric and apt for the material. Anderson himself cut a startling figure compared to many singers, and his facial expressions were much commented on at the time. Very folky actually, and well away from Beggar's Farm, which we heard in our very first programme. Now, following on from my musing on outer space, I normally give you a little bit of a TV programme or a film that I've liked. This one I'm going to go for is a TV programme that I'm afraid you and I won't ever be able to see. It's called The Monsters. It's from 1962. It was only 4 parts, and all episodes were wiped, and which is a real shame. It came out at the time of the Nessie craze, and all I can say to you, it was concerning unexplained creatures in a loch, and to a small boy of what would I have been, 7, and from some of the comments you can see about it online, it really was scary. And the particular one was the end of episode 3, where the lass is sat by the side of the loch with her feet dangling, and in the distance you can see like this little V shape getting closer and closer. It then vanishes just a few feet away from her, and then the episode ends with this enormous long neck and this sinister head rearing up out of the loch. Do you know, even after all these years, it still scares me. It really does. And of course, because it doesn't exist, you can't see how it probably wasn't as good as I thought. But there you are. Right, time to drift now with Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
I carry the dust of a journey that cannot be shaken away. It lives deep within me, for I breathed it every day. You and I are yesterday's answers, the earth of the past come to flesh. Eroded by time's rivers to the shapes we now possess. and mingle our streams and our times. In bright infinite moments, our reasons are lost in our rhymes.
brace of top tracks there. We heard first of all Emerson, Lake and Palmer with The Sage from the 1971 album Pictures at an Exhibition, and that was a great Greg Lake song of great beauty and worthy of the best, I feel, of Greg's songs. The album itself, incidentally, is a perfectly proportioned one, and by that I mean it's a good balance of the very beautiful and the very progressive. And the price was cheap at the time as well, if I remember rightly. I think it was about 10 shillings compared to the normal album, which was about £1.50. Could be wrong on that, but I think it was about half price anyway. And that was then followed by Illusion with Beautiful Country from 1977 and their album Out of the Mist. And oddly, on the previous track, we revisited program number 1 again, and there we did once more. We heard on the first program Face of Yesterday, which is also from the album on Out of the Mist. And this Beautiful Country is another lovely offering from the partial reunion of the original Renaissance. Well, Christmas will be upon us shortly, and I would like to point you in the direction of the Cosmic Christmas Jukebox, which is coming soon, and it'll be a good one, I think. But anyway, that's for another time. This is all for now. So firstly, thank you to Si for all his hard work, to Radio Lewis, to yourself as well for listening to me. And we leave together as it's time to board the Crystal Ship, courtesy of the Doors, and head way out. See you soon. Bye now.
Before you slip into unconsciousness, I'd like to have another kiss, another flashing chance at bliss, another kiss, another kiss. The days are bright and filled with pain, enclose me in your gentle rain. The time you ran was too insane. We'll meet again, we'll meet again. Oh, tell me where your freedom lies. The streets are fields that never die. Deliver me from reasons why you'd rather cry. I'd rather fly. The crystal ship is being filled. 1,000 girls, 1,000 thrills, 1,000,000 ways to spend your time. When we get back, I'll drop a line.
Radio Lewis. Local webcasting for a worldwide audience.